Today's video, we're going to talk about handling versus training. Let's go ahead and break this down. Handling versus training. Okay, so handling world and training world are two different worlds. And some guys live only in the training world and some guys live only in the handling world. Now, I think if we're somebody that is picking up pups and we're keeping on to them all throughout their entire lifetime, and we're not just starting pups or training dogs up and get rid of the dogs. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if we're adding value. Okay, so if we're adding value to a dog, we're doing it a service. Now, if we're going to hang on to the dog throughout this entire lifetime span to where we are wanting to continuously hunt this dog forever, what we need to be able to do is be able to be a trainer, and we need to be able to be a handler. And at some point in time, we have to draw that line and say, I'm no longer training this dog to do its job. I am now handling this dog. Now, the handling and training aspects of coon hunting is going to look a lot totally different things, right? Training is going to be super involved. It's going to be super breathing down the dog's neck all the time, hovering around it, paying attention to what it's got going on immediately. And handling is going to be kind of more laid back, hands off, free range, let the dog go. Figure out what it's doing over a longer course of time, maybe a month or 2 months, putting, night after night after night after night, putting 30 nights on it is what a lot of guys call it. Shooting everything down to it, not shooting anything down. This is where we're going to work out this kind of rough edges in our dog, and we're gonna kind of smooth it out and get it to perform on some consistent level. Now, a lot of dogs, they will do this. They'll be super hot, and then they'll be super not, super hot, super not, super hot, super not, and just this right here is what drives a lot of guys crazy, and it really, especially if you've trained the dog personally and it's doing this super hot, super not thing to where it's on fire for a night or two, then it just looks like horrible. This will drive a guy crazy, especially if they're the one that trained it, because you have all these personal attachments, you have all this personal effort. It's kind of like a pride thing. It's kind of like an ego thing. It boils down to a lot of stuff that is personal between you and the dog. And some dogs are really good at just ticking you off, right? Some dogs will do it on purpose just because they're smart enough to, so there's that. But what we have to do as a handler is we have to rough them edges out as best we can. And we have to get a dog to a level to where we put it in the woods and we know what to expect out of that dog. We know how that dog is going to perform night in, night out, and we'll get more of an easy ebb and flow of things. And how we're doing this is by, like I said, hands off, a less micromanaging approach, kind of letting the dog work and do its own thing. Now, here's one big key factor and big difference between training and between handling, is at some point in time, we have to really let the reins loose, and the dog has to go out there and do exactly what it's going to do. And you have to allow the dog to show you what it's going to do, right? And if we're micromanaging being in the dog's business, the dog's not going to do that, right? Because there's no way for it to be able to do that. So if we cut a dog at some point in time, we're going to have to be hands off and just go, I'm just here for the ride. Let him go do what he's going to do, and let them go tree up, and then we'll walk in there and we'll see. And we have to just kind of trust the dog, and we're going to work on this, right? We're going to work on trust of the dog and the dog's training and the dog's abilities. And once we get that good baseline over a long period of time, then we can start looking into things like leave them on the tree longer, hunt them more, hunt them less. Don't let them, get on tracks and run them all night. Don't let them, pick up these super hot ones all the time and just slam up these easy ones constantly. Now, all these are good and bad. Some guys will prefer one way because they're comp hunters, and some guys will prefer other ways for whatever the reason may be. Now, if we're pleasure hunting a dog a lot, it doesn't really matter how fast or how quick or how long it takes them to get treed if they go in there and get treed. It just like personal preference is severely, severely, severely cooked into this handling aspect. Now, as a handler, you have to have a dog that you agree with. And what I mean by that is you have to have a dog that is on the same page as you. And some dogs will flow with you really good and not give you as many headaches as some other dogs. And some dogs will just never not give you a headache. Now, and as a handler, we have to decide whether or not we are going to handle this dog. If this dog too problematic for my preference, because that is where a lot of guys lose the ticket. That's where a lot of guys, like I said, it will drive them absolute bonkers to have a dog that they've trained and it doesn't cut it for you. Okay, so that's another thing too. Is my dog cutting it for me? Is this dog enough, right? And we have to be really honest with ourselves. And this is one thing I say on the channel a lot. You have to be completely and fully honest with yourself and about your dog. And that's one thing that a lot of guys kind of miss. They miss that aspect of things. Maybe they got a really good bred dog and they go, I definitely, this is the dog for me, this is the dog for me. And they're just blowing it up in their head and they're saying, this is my dog, I'm never letting go of this dog. But this dog is just giving them the worst run for their money that they've ever had. And they would be way better off hunting a different dog, right? Or handling a different dog. So we need to get out there and we need to get our dog in other woods. Now, this is one thing that I will impart to you guys. I say a lot about the solo hunting stuff. I say a lot about hunting on my own and being a solo hunter for the most part. I do not want that to be misconstrued as that I've never been in the woods with other dogs. I've never ran my dogs with other dogs. I've never hunted with other hunters and other dogs, because I have did my fair share of both. And at the end of the day, we have to have our dog in the woods with other dogs, because we can get a dog that is complete garbage. Excuse my language, but we can get a dog that is completely garbage, and we get into the woods with any old dog that's out there, and it will blow the doors off our dog. But we will never understand that there is a better level, a better understanding, a dog that goes a lot better, and we don't have any idea that our dog isn't such a good dog, right? A dog that will treat coons is a good dog in my opinion. A dog that'll do it better is a better dog, right? So there's kind of that idea cooked in it. You have to have your dog in the woods with other dogs. You have to hunt with other dogs. Even if you do not take your own dog, you need to be in the woods with other dogs if it is possible, because we have to have this gauge. We have to have this meter. Now, one thing that I did for a long time is I stayed in this training mindset, right? I stayed in the training mindset for a very long time on a couple dogs, and I kept them in out of the eyes, out of prying eyes. I kept them away from people. I kept them out of people being judgmental, and I kept them in the pocket, and I didn't let nobody see what they had or what they were doing. But what I ended up doing is I ended up keeping a dog shut in just to myself and focused on this training for so long that by the time that I actually did bring the dog out, when I put my dog in the woods, one thing that I realized is that my dog was this much better than everybody else's dog that I ran with. And that put me in a bad spot in the sense of my dog is doing this much better, and these guys are down here with their dogs at this point in time. And what ended up happening is I had a lot of guys only wanting to run with me because I had good dogs, right? People only wanted to get in the woods with me to help train their dogs, stuff like that. I don't mind that at all. But at the same time, when you're hunting with people, you got to hunt with people, and you got to get out there and you got to see what's out there. Never really did I get in the woods other than one time and have a dog completely blow the doors off my dog. And that was really severely eye-opening for me. That really opened my eyes to go, I thought my dog was really good. This dog is phenomenal, right? So there is levels to this, and this is calibers. This is the whole thing. So being a handler and not getting stuck in that training is something that I would recommend. We can get stuck in the training and keep our dog, in the pocket and keep it out of everybody's eyesight and not run with other dogs and not fill our brains with knowledge. But when we go into the woods, we have to be able to know. Right, we have to be able to know, and the only way that we will be able to know whether our dog is performing well or not performing well is to have other dogs to put it against. And this is, where comp hunting comes into. This is where hunting with your buddies comes into. I have gotten together quite a few guys and cut a bunch of dogs and just let them go, and just see how your dog stacks up against other people's dogs, see how their dogs perform versus how your dogs perform. And this gives us a broader spectrum, a broader variety. Now, one thing that I've always thought, I'm not going to say thought was a bad idea, but one thing that I always thought was something that was kind of not the right idea to do. And that is hunting with dogs that are like grand nighted out, hunting with dogs that are, severely big name dogs. Yes, definitely take the opportunity. Definitely put your dog in the woods with these dogs. Definitely take the time and see what's going on and what the fuss is about these bigger name dogs that have a lot of titles on them and stuff like that. But what you cannot do is you cannot get used to those dogs, right? You cannot get used to that dog. You can kind of seek that and you can kind of go, I want my dog to do that. But you cannot get caught up in the fact that that dog with all those titles is better than your dog. What we have to be able to do is go, this is what I want to work towards, but I'm not going to kick my dog in the butt, or I'm not going to, look down on my dog because he's not that good. Now I know a couple guys that when you ask them to go hunting, they have a lot of dogs, right? They have a lot of dogs, but you ask them to go hunting, and the only dog that they want to bring out is that prize winner, that big name dog, and they want to, rub it in your face. They want to whoop your dogs in the woods tenfold. They want to, just really show you how bad your dog is. Now, if we have people that have dogs on the same level as us, these are the dogs that we should be hunting with kind of on a regular basis to kind of keep a baseline heat in our dogs. If we run with a dog that's too good for our dog won't be able to keep up. And the dog's not really learning anything. All we're doing is taking whoopings in the woods constantly. And this is kind of going into handling, right? We need to be able to handle in a way that we force our dog in a direction. Now, handling and stuff like that, that is personal preference. You guys can handle however you want to handle. I think there's only a few set rules about that, and I think it has to be severely hands off, like especially in the very first couple months of transitioning out of training into handling. We have to let the dog show us what it's doing without us being there, and whether it's going to get better, stay the same, or deteriorate without our interference. But I'm going to wrap up that video, guys. Hope you guys like that video. Get down there, hit a like and a subscribe. Shout out to everybody who voted for the new channel name. This will be the first video officially under the new channel name. So thank y'all for hitting that poll right there. Let's go ahead and jump into shout outs. I have shout outs for Jack Wolf, Bob Justice, Eric Miller, Cody Baird, and Drew Wazoskowicz. Thank you all for taking the time to comment. Thank you all for coming in here and checking out the channel, checking out the content, and participating in what we have going on here. I do have a couple different people have mentioned and brought up the podcast thing. Now, I want to be able to get guys on the podcast that have knowledge, right? That's my main goal. Guys that have been around the block, guys that have ran dogs a lot, guys that have good common sense. That's kind of my only stipulations here for the podcast. I know I was talking to a couple different people. I don't want cussing on the podcast if we can help it, because that's a whole different story about YouTube. I just have to make sure that products and stuff like that, I don't want people putting products on the channel I don't agree with. So if people are involved with other things, stuff like that. So just all in all, if people have the time, and my schedule is super wonky, and this is exactly why I haven't had as many people on the podcast as other podcasts, is because I'm a third shifter, right? So I'm usually up at night. I'm not usually up so much in the daytime. Here or there, I'll have days where I'm up and active all day from early in the morning, like when I had Jim Wales on the podcast. That was a day that I kind of set aside and planned for that, and that was kind of a big thing to do that, right? And that is just schedules and all this stuff getting put together. So sitting down and doing the podcast solo and doing these videos solo is kind of a main staple here just because of scheduling. So I don't want anybody to think that I've looked over you guys reaching out for the podcast. I know I had a guy reach out on Facebook. Really big to do in the plot world. I'm thinking about getting him to come on the podcast. Had a couple of subscribers reach out. I don't know if Kurt is still around. Kurt, I'm so sorry, man. I invited you on the podcast, and I never got it hashed out, and I never got our schedules right, and I'm really sorry for that. So if you're still hanging out, I just want you to know it was nothing personal. It is just like scheduling is so bad. But anyways, I got some more shout outs. White Wolf and Brandon Pepper. White Wolf and Brandon Pepper, you guys are the most recent 2 subscribers that I can see on the channel. Now, I've had a lot of subscribers since the last video that I posted, and I just want to give each and every one of you a huge shout out, all right? I can't see everybody, and I say this in a lot of the videos. You have public YouTube accounts, you have private YouTube accounts. If you have a private YouTube account, I cannot see your name, right? So I cannot even shout you out. But I will give you a shout out as a subscriber. I want to shout out all my subscribers because this is awesome that you guys come in here and just keep this ball rolling. You guys get down there and hit that subscribe button, and let's get the subscribers up. Let's start taking this channel places. Let's start doing things. Let's, get this stuff out there. And if you guys are, supportive here and you guys got my back, which I know you do got my back here on the channel, share me around. If you guys are in other groups or other podcasts or into watching other channels, let them know, hey, this guy's over here. That would be awesome. And I think that would be just great of you guys to do that. But let's wrap that video up and y'all keep them treed.